Hi everyone, James Egersdorff here. Happy New Year. I'm here to talk to you about my January strategy guide for FPL. Hope you all had a good Christmas. It was certainly hectic with the fixtures coming thick and fast. I did okay, probably would have preferred to have done a bit better. Currently sitting 858th overall, so dropped a fair bit. I'll talk a bit about that later on in the video, but I thought it might be useful just to run through a couple of ideas that I have going into this January period now the hectic Christmas schedule is out the way. Premier League fixtures going back to normal a bit more now, so sort of every weekend rather than every few days. The thing that is coming back and is going to impact us a bit is the return of the cup fixtures. So we've seen the FA Cup this weekend, Carabao Cup semi-finals over 2 legs are coming up, and not too far around the corner the European football will be back, causing a bit of havoc with rotation. The other thing that of course brings a lot of change this time of year is the January transfer window. So that's just opened. We've just seen today it looks like Coutinho is going to be the first big money transfer of the window, happening already inside the first week. But with lots of change in FPL brings opportunity. So I do think January is a really good time for people who like to plan. So if you're into really researching your moves, your transfer moves a few weeks in advance, then this time of year really bodes well. It's a really good time for you to take advantage. I think it's a bad time of year. I think it's a bad move anyway. If you like making your transfers early, you've quite got itchy fingers and you want to pull the trigger. I think you really need to wait this time of year, because particularly in January, every day that passes, new information becomes available to you that you previously didn't have. So a team might sign a new player, they may sell a player, that creates opportunity for somebody else to come into the team, and suddenly the game sort of moves around a bit. And whereas in the start of the season we don't have too much knowledge about the form of players, etc., we've got the best part of 20 something weeks now to judge that form. So when a transfer does happen, we can perhaps react and be ahead of the curve, which is where we're trying to get to when there's change, rather than getting left behind. Great example was a few years ago, for those who remember Newcastle having a great season with Demba Ba up front. January came along and Cisse was signed. Demba Ba's form fell off an absolute cliff and Cisse took all his points. So in that example, you needed to be on it and you needed to be moving and making that switch to Cisse and making that early to take advantage, otherwise you were going to get left behind. Like I said about needing information, I think at the minute team value is important in January, but if a player goes up by 0.1 or 0.2 in a week, I think it's worth investing that money in finding out exactly where we're up to. So a good example with that lots of changes, things like the injuries, the suspensions that come with the cup fixtures. So if you look at this FA Cup weekend, for example, we've got the whole Firmino-Holgate scenario going on. We don't know what might happen there. A couple of players will have picked up injuries that are going to impact us as well. So don't get too worried about losing out on a 0.1 or 0.2 on the transfer value. Try and make that transfer as late as you possibly can in a week, so you've got all that information to factor into your decision making. The wild card is now active. Keep it. Don't go using it unless you're having an absolute nightmare. It'll be really valuable to you at the end of the season. The same goes for all the chips. If you've still got them, try and keep them for now. That's my advice, because I do think there'll be some good double game weeks that come up towards the end. Just a couple of comments on some of the players, some of the names floating around. So I talked about Coutinho earlier. Does that make Liverpool weaker? I certainly think so. I think they're a much better team with him in the side. So on paper it does. Does that mean, though, that somebody like a Salah, Mane, they're going to have to step up even more to fill his shoes? Does that open the door for the likes of Lallana back from injury, Oxlade-Chamberlain, a new signing that we might not know yet? So take, for example, Mahrez. He's not cup-tied, I don't think, for the European games, so he could play in the Champions League for them. He could be a good signing, and that's a name that's been rumoured. What then does that mean for Leicester? Does that mean opportunities for Albrighton, for Gray, for somebody else new? So straight away, that one Coutinho transfer has all that knock-on effect that as an FPL manager you really need to think about. So again, it reiterates, don't rush into your decision-making quickly. People talking about, is it a good strategy to ditch Kane? Those who follow me on Twitter will know I did over Christmas, and he got back-to-back hat-tricks. Still hurting about that one. I had some logical reasons for doing it. If you check out some of the stuff I did around the time on my Twitter feed, you'll be able to see my reasoning. I still think that's not a bad strategy. Kane is a great player, but he is the most expensive player. If you're not captaining him, there's good logic to perhaps ship him out and reinvest the money elsewhere. Aguero could be a good option. However, he's got 7 games, including the Cups. Man City have 7 games in the next 25 days. He's the only fit striker. Is he going to play every Premier League game? I'm not so sure. I personally think City might sign another striker or a player that could play in that role. So Sanchez has been rumoured. Could we see him going there? Quite possible. The guy that I am quite excited about is the chap that's arrived at Everton. I'm eagerly awaiting his FPL price, the Turkish chap Tosun. Big Sam is a brilliant judge of player. He knows that European market very, very well. He's got a track record of finding good signings from there. And one of the reasons I'm interested as well is the value or the options in the forward bracket on FPL. There's very few under 10 million. You've got Firmino and Vardy. That's pretty much about it, the people that are nailed to play every game week. So this guy could be a real bargain. And when, again, we talk about opportunity and change, this one could be a real game changer. If he hits the ground running, perhaps be an alternative to Kane, frees up some money, and you can reinvest that into other parts of your team. I'll be back later in the week with a preview for game week 23. In the meantime, please reach out, comment if there's anything you'd like me to chat about in that video. Reach out to me on Twitter. Thank you for your support, and I'll see you Thursday. Cheers.